Welcome back, Catholic Connection, on a snowy Monday morning, January 12, 2014. Chatting, of course, with FF, as we call him, the Flying Father, Father Frank Pavone from Priests for Life, who joins us every week. You know, it's interesting. Do you think more people are starting to pay attention to the testimonies? Because this is one of the biggest things I struggle with, Father, when we go to the Supreme Court, is you see some of these people, a lot of them women and young women, standing there mocking the women and men, talking about their experience.
There's definitely more attention being given to the testimonies within pro-life circles. And the other side is paying attention to them in the sense that it bothers them, and they try to counteract it with efforts of their own to destigmatize abortion. In D.C. next week, the pro-aborts are doing some kind of a play called 1 in 3, talking about the experience of people with abortion, and they're trying to present it as something that people can do it, and then they can feel fine, and then they can get over it. Well, all the people in our Silent No More campaign, they could have said the same thing if you talked with them soon enough after their abortion. They say, oh yeah, it solved my problem. Sure, because it relieved the immediate pressure of the idea that they were having a child. But follow them for a few years after that, and all the complications that arise and the grief that presents itself become pretty clear.
There is no good reason to have an abortion. All the logical reasons fail to keep your heart from breaking when it's over. If, like me, you were raped and you think that you can't bear 9 months of pregnancy, I can tell you from experience that the 17 years of regret have been worse.
When I drove to the clinic, I thought, this feels so wrong, but because it's legal, it must be okay. And afterwards, as I left the clinic, I was so relieved my problem was over. I spent the night at my sister's house, and in the morning I was overcome with what I did. And I decided that the only way I was going to make this work was to simply pretend that Saturday, October 4th, 1976, never happened.
Sometimes you hear politicians or leaders in the pro-abortion movement, whether it's like Wendy Davis, who in her autobiography talked about how difficult her abortion was, and she admitted to having an abortion, what a difficult decision. You have other politicians and other pro-aborts who say, oh my gosh, it's such a hard decision. How could it be such a hard decision and then also be no big deal? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it doesn't make sense. Even the very effort that they're undertaking, and they're doing this explicitly, we're not reading into this, they are saying we want to destigmatize abortion. Well, the very effort that they make to do that shows the rightness of our position, because, well, first of all, why do you have to destigmatize it if it doesn't have a stigma attached? It does. And since they still have to make efforts to destigmatize it, then an interesting question arises. If 40 years of the highest court in the land reaffirming the so-called right to choose abortion hasn't destigmatized it yet, well, then when is it going to? If 40 years of laws reinforcing that court decision and of major media promoting the choice of abortion, and academia and even some people in the religious world, all these people, all this money and political and media influence saying abortion is a right and it's a good thing, how come there's still any stigma attached to it at all? The fact that there is, and that the other side still has to try to make it appear to be okay, shows that this is never going to be destigmatized, because it's so contrary to human nature and experience that people will always see that it's wrong, even if they want to try to argue that it should be legal.
I mean, not too many people want to talk about it or hear about it. That's why they still call themselves, in many cases, pro-choice, and
right.
Still try to minimize the terminology and the wording and the semantics around abortion. Every time they try to do this, I remember a couple of years ago when Planned Parenthood had I had an abortion
yes.
T-shirts that they were selling, and people even within Planned Parenthood were just trying to shut it down because they thought it was pretty ridiculous.
Even people who claim they're talking about abortion and defending it aren't talking about abortion. They can't talk about it because it's too disturbing.